Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'm a marketing specialist here at Educate 360. Welcome to today's webinar, What is the Project Management Professional Certification? Presented by the Managing Director at Velopi, Seamus Collins. We are in Zoom for today's session, and we will be sharing a copy of this recording with you in an email after the webinar. We do encourage participation throughout the webinar, so please use the chat or the Q&A option for our short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today, so without further ado, I will hand it over to you, Seamus.
All right, thank you, Mariela, and welcome to everybody that's joined the call today, and welcome to anyone that watches this afterwards, and hopefully it answers some of your questions around PMP certification. I answer these questions every day. People calling our office asking questions about the PMP, and this webinar then is a great way of getting a bunch of people together and answering the questions in one go. So the main questions, I suppose, are, what is the PMP? And a lot of people would have heard about it, so I'm going to talk you through that and explain it. Why would you want it? People say, do I really need it? And I say, well, okay, I'll give you the advantages of it. And then how do you get it? That's the big question a lot of people have. How do I get it? How long will it take me? What does the course look like? And will you help me get this? So it's it starts. They're the main things. But if you have any other questions during the session, and just feel free to put them into chat or reach out to me privately afterwards. There's no problem and there's no charge. So all good. So the first thing I suppose I'd often draw people's attention to is on the very cover here. Why should I answer? Why am I qualified to answer these questions? Well, I've been doing this for 17 years, helping people through PMP certification. And I've done my own PMP and I've done other certifications as well. So I understand the process very well. And Velopi is what we call a Project Management Institute authorized training partner. Okay, so we have the official materials from the PMI. Our trainers have been approved by PMI. We've been doing this a long time and we understand the process very, very well. Okay, so let's make a start. What is PMP certification? And I start off always by explaining one or two things, the acronyms. Sometimes people talk about PMI, sometimes people say PMBOK, some people say PMP, and we just get that language clear first. PMP is Project Management Professional. It's a certification from the PMI. PMI is Project Management Institute. Okay, they're the governing body. And again, the PMP or the PMI, they have a book called the PMBOK. Project Management Body of Knowledge. So often you might hear people saying, I'm studying PMBOK at the moment, but I'll explain to you later on that not everything in this exam is from the PMBOK. Okay, so sometimes people go off saying, I'm going to read the PMBOK and do the PMP exam. And I'm saying, well, that's not going to work. Okay, so I'll explain to you what maybe you should read and maybe the materials we can give you are, all encompassing really for your certification process. So the first thing anyway, the PMP is a widely recognized certification. Over 1 million people in the world have it. If you go onto LinkedIn or you see people upskilling, very often you see, I passed my PMP exam. Very often in internal job roles, you'll see things like, PMP preferred, PMP required. So I suppose it is a certification that I suppose shows that you have some competence in project management in terms of initiating, planning, executing, etc. And it's very recognized, but it's very often demanded as well. And what I mean by demanded is that in some of our customers or in many companies, you can't manage projects above a certain size without having the PMP. You can't progress up their project management career ladder unless you have your PMP. You may not get your interview unless you have the PMP. It's a screening criteria. And I suppose that's where we start off. Why would you want this? Well, project language and project management is everywhere. And even companies that I would have worked with over the years or even met on my journey training people in project management, more and more work is getting projectized. And there's a growing need for more project managers. And you can see here, 80, 90 million, working in project management type roles. And any role you see advertised today, there's an element of project management in it. And if you just joined the company, the first day you meet your new boss, the boss goes, I have a project for you. So even if you're not the project manager, project management is everywhere. And that's why a lot of people will go on the basic PM courses with us, etc. Because even if they're not the project manager, they need project management. But for those of you that are career project managers, very often it's accidental. We end up in a project management role. We came from engineering, we came from science backgrounds, we came from different backgrounds, maybe non-tech related, who knows? And now you end up in a project management role. And you've been doing the role, but you've got no certification in it to say, hey, actually, I can do this. I'm certified by somebody. Now, again, you could be certified by a university. We also work with UCC on certifications. But if you want an industry certification, the PMP is often the one that people go for. And you can see here that there's a huge amount of money wasted in projects. So we don't just need more project managers, we need better ones. And I suppose that's where the PMP comes in. It's trying to drag the project manager up that capability ladder, really, and say this person, he or she, whatever, can manage projects and has the competence and the confidence to do this. Why would you need it then yourself? Well, most people that I would meet, they would say, I got great value out of that PMP. It was money well invested. And as I said already, we see people, in certain surveys earning a lot more money in project management because they have the certification that goes and underpins their experience to say, yeah, this person is good and can manage these projects. So they command a higher salary. But often it's a personal thing as well, where people are, as I said, thrown into the role, are doing the role quite well, but they maybe feel a bit like an imposter at times and they want to get the certification. And that's what the course is about, is helping people to get that certification, whether it's for professional needs or personal needs, or financial needs. But again, a lot of people do it for future proofing. They may not need it today. They say, well, I'm doing fine at work, but if I was ever made redundant or if I had to move roles, what would I go to the market as? They might say, well, I'm a project manager, I suppose, really. Okay, but have you got certifications? No. Okay, well, then maybe that might come against you. So there's an element of future proofing often with these things as well. How do you get it? So we know what it is, and we know why you might want it. And now, how would you go about getting it? And the big challenge here is there's a 180 question exam. And that's I suppose, the hurdle everybody has to jump if they want to pass the PMP or get the PMP certification. And how we do it really is that there's a 5-day training course. It's 35 hours education from an authorized training partner, just like us. And I'll show you the course content in a moment, but here at Velopi, we're very aware of, I suppose, the pressures on people in industry. And if you said to your boss, I'm heading off now on a 5-day training course, they'd say, forget that, we're too busy. We spread the course out over 3 weeks very often, and in some cases even more. But usually we do 2 days week 1, 2 days week 2, 1 day week 3. And the reason for that is that people can get the time off work, is the first point. But actually they can absorb a lot more information because the dates are spread out. And that seems to work very well with the people we're dealing with. They're busy people and they can get some time off, but they can't get 5 days maybe in sequence, but they can absorb a lot of information if it's split out. Okay. There's also a code of ethics, but the code of ethics is very similar to the code of ethics many of you would have in your own company about responsibility, respect, fairness, honesty, standard enough stuff. So that's the straightforward thing. The big problem, though, is probably trying to pass this exam, which is nearly 4 hours in duration. Okay. Now, you have to fill an application form to the PMI, and we help you fill this. So if you have a degree, if you've got a 4-year bachelor's degree, we need to document 3 years of project management type experience. Now, they're short descriptions. They're only 200 words, but we help you write it, because very often people coming from companies, they write in a certain way. They use language or lingo or acronyms that only they understand. So if you submit what you write to the PMI might say, well, what's he or she trying to say to me here? I can't decipher what they're saying. And it just goes around in circles. So we have some supports in place to help you write up the application. If you do not have a degree, they'll want you to document 5 years. Now, very often, again, when people see this criteria, people might say, but Seamus, I was never called the project manager. But when you talk to them very often, they've been doing scoping, they've been providing estimates, they've been putting mitigations in place for risks, they've been sending updates, they've been dealing with stakeholders. That's project management. And they say, oh yeah, I've been doing all that. So it's a case of looking back over a number of years of your career and actually piecing together the parts of your career where you were doing project management if you weren't doing it full time. And you can go back up to 8 years to piece this together. So we have a simple Excel template that you will follow. You will write it up. I will proofread it with you, suggest changes, modifications where it's not clear, tidy it up and help you submit that to the PMI. Okay. Now, the main thing that I want to get across in today's session as well is in the early days, the PMP, maybe anyone, if you met someone that did the PMP many years ago, they might say, oh, it's very process driven, all these inputs and outputs. It's just like a memory test. And it's not that anymore, because I suppose the old version of the test was maybe very specific on certain documents and things you should do. But like the life of a project manager in the past, project managers were very focused on executing a process really to produce some deliverable. But the role of the project manager really has changed over the years, because the business does not want just the deliverable. The deliverable wants the benefit. The business wants the value. And I suppose that's what the project management course and the PMI have moved the certification towards, is that, yes, people still execute processes, but they execute them in an ever-changing business environment. So your project environment doesn't sit still. The world moves on. Your company could be going through a merger, a reorg, an acquisition. The market might change while you're doing a project. But you're constantly keeping a focus on value. And that's where this course, I think, is really, really powerful, in that it has moved really from process orientated and initiate plan, kind of a linear approach, to saying, actually, look, keep an eye on value, keep an eye on benefit. You still need to manage the people executing the processes, but it's in an ever-changing business environment, and you need to be constantly looking to optimize the value. So it gives that more rounded view of projects, and gives that project manager, instead of just thinking about, scoping and scheduling and the hard tools of project management, it opens up a bigger sphere of thinking really around business value, benefits realization, benefit transition, benefit sustainment, etc. And this is the opening point then that I mentioned. Sometimes people, when they think they're going to do the PMP, they go off and they buy the PMBOK, the body of knowledge. And it's a total waste of time. Because not all the exam comes from the PMBOK, and not all the PMBOK is in the exam. And I'll explain more in a moment where the material does come from. But at the moment, it's 180 questions. It's done in 230 minutes. And you can do the exam from home in what they call an online proctored exam, or you can go to a test center. Okay. So again, when you get your application approved and you start to make payment, etc., the PMI will say then, okay, where do you want to take the exam? You can click on, I want to take it from home. You pick your time, and it's very flexible. A person logs in at the same time as you from the PMI side. You put on your camera, they watch you doing the exam. If you go to a test center, there could be a bunch of people there at the same time, all doing the exam, or different types of exams. And it depends where you're coming from. In some cities, they might have multiple centers. In Ireland, we have a center in Cork and a center in Dublin. Okay. But again, you've got to book ahead to get a seat at the exam center. What is the exam looking like? Well, 50% of the exam is still all about scoping, scheduling, risk, budget, those types of topics. But if the good thing about it now is 42% of the exam is about people. And if you think about it, it's people do the work on projects. And very often in the past, project managers were trained in scoping and critical paths and mitigation and budget building and all this type of stuff. And they didn't maybe get a lot of the power skills of project management, communication, stakeholder management, conflict resolution, emotional intelligence, team building, all of those concepts. The new course does, and the course that's been in place now a number of years does, in that it spends a lot of the course talking about people, getting the people to putting a team together and getting that team to work together. Okay. And I suppose I've met many people over my career that might have been great on scoping and scheduling and the hard skills, but they couldn't get people to work. And I suppose that is a key skill of the project manager, to get the work done, get the people to work together to get the work done. Okay. And again, a lot of us might be very good at that and maybe not so good at the other skills. Some of us are very good at scoping and scheduling and not good at that. Past the PMP exam, I would say we need to be good on both. The other part of the exam is there's 8% on business awareness. And that's all around, change management, business value measurement, net present values, ROI. And again, that's good stuff to know as a project manager, because the C-suite will always ask you, when will I get my benefit? What is the ROI on this project? So it's important that you get to grips with those types of concepts. This is the material for the exam today. There are 10 books the PMI draw the material from. Now, please do not go reading these, because it's up to me to read them. And even then, the PMI have distilled these books down into a set of course notes. And because we're an authorized training partner, we have those course notes. And if you come on our course, you get a set of notes, and it's everything you need for the exam. Okay, so don't go off buying 10 books, because it will just, there's no need. But if you come on the course, you get a set of notes, and they're everything you need. So if you are thinking of going in any course, go with an ATP. Just to give you a sneak preview of what's in the course. And as I said, it's, sometimes you might look at this and say, actually, it sets the business context first. Then it's a bit like initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling, and closing. But as we see in here, there's more depth to these modules. So the opening module, all about governance and compliance, strategic alignment, really understanding how your project fits into that bigger picture for the organization. How does it bring value? How are we going to measure the benefit? And what change will it bring? And what maybe, as a result of considering change, what scope do we have to include to deal with that change as well? So it's a great foundation module to start off with. And then we get into initiating, understanding, are we going to be a waterfall or a more agile approach here? Building the shared understanding is a bit like building the charter for the project. What are the objectives? What are the benefits? Who are the stakeholders? And what does the team look like? Then you get into more traditional stuff here. Scoping, scheduling, risk, all the usual, budget, all those, building the project management plan. Once I have the plan, then we get into the concept, obviously, of getting the team to do the work, executing the plan, dealing with conflict as it happens, etc., etc. Then it's big into, I suppose, removing blockers, monitoring and controlling, forecasting, supporting the performance to get the work done. And then the last part is handover and closure, realizing the benefits. But this module here is put in here, which is quite interesting. How do we capture knowledge so we can use it again if we have to do the same project, either on this site or maybe some other site in our organization? And some companies are really, really getting a lot of value from that, because they're saying, well, if we can capture the knowledge, even if some people move on, we know how to do it again because we've captured the knowledge. Some companies taking that module very seriously at the moment. Okay. What do you get from Velopi? Well, at the end of the day, we have a process to get you through the certification. So if you decide to go and you want to do the PMP, we'll start you off with, the application and the study, but the big thing we give you is the exam simulators. And the exam simulators are to prep you and get you into the mindset of doing a multiple choice exam again, and really helping you narrow down the amount of study you do, because it's a very smart application in that it can help pinpoint areas where you are struggling. So instead of it'll generate a set of questions for you, you can analyze it, will tell you where you are going wrong. But the big thing, I suppose, we give people is study support as well. If you're really struggling on something and you've been on our course, you can pick up the phone and call me and I'll explain the topic to you again. And people find that very comforting, because this is not just about going on the classroom training. And that's where I think a lot of people get this wrong. They just sign up to some provider and they get the training. Then how do I do the application? Oh, I don't know. Have you got an exam simulator? Oh no, we don't have, and then suddenly they're left high and dry and they never see the exam center. So people ask me then, how long will it take me? Well, it depends. See, how smart are you and how much time you have on your hands and how much experience you have. The average person I find works through the whole thing in about 2 months. So the course itself is about 5 days, but we need you to do some mock exams. And that's very hard to schedule because those exams are 4 hour slots, which is effectively half a day. So you might say to someone, look, do an exam. They say, yeah, I won't get that to that until Saturday. Then, the following week goes, it could be, if you do 3, 4 of those, a month slips by very, very quickly. So again, the average person gets it done in about 2 months. But some people take 3, 4, or 5 months because it might be the wrong time of year. They might have some crisis at work. They might have some crisis at home. But again, we don't cut you off. You've got 6 months access to our materials and you can download the materials and keep them, even if you needed then to do it in 12 months. There's no problem. But again, because it's a self-set exam date, sometimes people procrastinate and they kick it down the road. It would nearly be better at times, and I've done it myself with very busy people, is book a date for the exam. And that's one great way to get the mind focused on getting the exam done. Okay. A lot of questions now coming up from people like yourselves that might be considering this. They might have read some stuff online saying agile is a huge part of the course. And sometimes it frightens people. And there's no need to be frightened because, yes, agile is part of the course now. And if you're coming from a software background where you practice agile, you might be saying fabulous, brilliant. If you come from maybe a very regulated background or a very predictive waterfall type approach, you might be saying, I know nothing about agile. But actually, this could be I suppose we get a lot of feedback on the course and people say, well, actually, now I know more about agile. Actually, it's not all, I understand it now. I can apply some of that at my company. Or no, it's not for us. I realize, no, it's not for us. We can't use agile for the following reasons. The main thing is you do not have to be an agile guru to pass the PMP exam. We give you enough knowledge. We have some videos for you to watch. We'll cover it in class, the concepts with you, and it's more than enough to pass the PMP. If you subsequently want more knowledge on Agile, we have separate 1 and 2 day courses to give you that knowledge. Okay. The last part here is, I suppose, is we give you access to official materials. And we give you access really through a digital license key. So when you buy a course off us, you get access to a learning management system. That is a portal where you've got your copy of the materials, etc. And the key is not transferable. Okay, so it's just for you. The question types are all multiple choice. There is no negative marking, which is a good thing. So, and again, people might ask, what is the pass mark? But the pass mark, the PMI would say, is dependent on the severity of the exam you get on the day. But I believe it'd be somewhere between 60 and 65% based on, I suppose, experience of doing this a long time. So we'll be encouraging you on our simulator to get up over 70% to give you that wiggle room on the day in the event of nerves and stress. But you get your score up over 70% on our simulator, you will pass the exam. Okay, unless you have some complete meltdown stress-wise, people that get that score on the mock exams go on to pass the real thing. Okay. Now, again, the main questions, as I said, are MCQ. They might vary the questions slightly where they want you to read a little graph or match things off or something like that. But in general, they're multiple choice with one right answer, no negative marking. Okay. Last question here, I suppose, why take an ATP course and an authorized training partner? Well, I suppose we've been vetted by the PMI. We have access to their latest materials. Our trainers have even been vetted, and our trainers have had to attend a train the trainer course to deliver the PMI approved materials. And we give you access to these mock exams as well. So in addition to all the PMI material, we believe it's by doing previous questions that you actually really, really get good at this. And that's the real trick, I suppose, is to, if you think back to when you were in college or school, you could be reading the notes all day, but it's doing the questions really is what got you exam ready. Okay. And we support you all the way up. So that's it. There's just a little career ladder that we develop for our clients. And sometimes we might have people that have done PM Essentials and they're just going straight to the PMP. Sometimes we have people who have done maybe some other course with us in project management and now they're going to the PMP. But as I said at the start, it's usually a destination for a lot of people. They want to get their PMP certification. Other people might have university certifications with us, etc. But a lot of people want to get the PMP as well, because sometimes we have companies that have, they might have a certification from UCC and we've delivered that to them, but the employer also wants them to have the PMP. So many of them might be double badged. They might have a university certification and the PMP certification. And that's it from me. So I know it's Friday afternoon for most of you. So, and I'm conscious always to try and wrap up within the 25, 30 minutes. Is there any questions from anybody? And if not, I'll leave you at this point. But if there is, I'll take questions. But if not, just feel free to reach out to me directly, and I have no problem, talking to you privately, because everyone's situation is different. Sometimes people will have a very specific question and they don't want to discuss it in public in a forum like this. So if you want to, just feel free to reach out to me after this, and I'm happy to have a call with you. Okay. All right, Mariella, I'll pass it back to you. Is there one question? If you
Yeah,
have a
we do.
master's degree, okay. Now, just be very careful. If you have a master's degree, the PMI are reducing some of the criteria to 2 years experience. Now, I haven't logged in and seen that myself, but again, on the PMI website at the moment, they're saying if you have a degree, and a degree now is a 4-year degree, not a 3-year degree. So if you have some other thing, if you have some other qualification that's not a 4-year equivalent, if it's a 4-year degree, you need to document 3 years of project management experience. However, if you have a master's degree, the criteria apparently has been reduced to 2 years experience. Okay. Can we only take 3 mock-up tests? Okay. Now, this is one thing, and people often say to me, God, that's very mean, right? And it's not mean. It's actually to save you time. Because what sometimes people were doing when we were giving them way more tests is they were going in banging and they'd go 55%. On to the next test, ding, 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 down through it. We're giving you a study plan and we're saying, do the test, understand where you went wrong, do some study for a week, do another test. And it's very deliberate. Because even in the past, we used to let people, repeat questions and redo exams, etc. The problem was then is they were starting to remember answers and they were getting a false reading. Now we've got, I think, 2,000 questions in there. There's probably more than 3 mock tests. But all we try and recommend people is to say, do the course, do a mock test 1 week after the course. 2 weeks later, do a second mock test. 2 weeks later, do a third mock test. And sometime in the next 2 weeks, do the actual exam. If I give you 20 exams, you'd spend time. I've only got 3 done. I have to keep on going. Very often, you only need 3 and use them wisely. Do them deliberately and do them once. We'll help you identify your weak areas if you can't see them for yourself. If your score is not improving, you come back to Seamus and say, Seamus, look, I did an exam, I got 60%. I did the next exam, I only got 60%. I don't know where I'm going wrong. I'll help you. But if you've done 20 exams and it's just way too much to process. So we have more exams, obviously, and there's more content in there and you can do more stuff. But we try and say do 3 every second week and just wrap it up and get it done. You sometimes can get, sometimes we see people as well, even if we give them 10 exams, they'd go off and they'd find on the web 10 more exams. And then somebody came back to me recently and said, Seamus, on your simulator, I'm only getting 60, but on another simulator over here, I'm only getting 45. And I say, yeah, but they're probably trying to sell you something, and sure enough, they're saying, buy these books and buy these flashcards and buy all this other crap. And you don't need it. Whereas I looked at some other website that person was looking at and they were saying, I'm getting 90% over here. I'm saying, yeah, but they're not an ATP. Their questions are not at the PMI standard. So we're trying to lead you in the right direction by saying, this is the standard. We know what the standard is. Do the exams once and do them only once and move on to a fresh exam so you're not remembering answers. and be very methodical, because we don't want people wasting their time. The average person will need maybe 20, 30 hours after the course to pass the PMP. But you could spend hundreds of hours going around in circles and you might never see the PMP exam if you've got too much stuff. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. Anything else from anybody?
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't think so, Seamus, but I believe that that ties us up perfectly. And if anyone needs any more info on this topic, please do not be afraid to visit us at velopi.com. We will be sending a recording with all of you in an email after the webinar. So if you aren't able to attend the full session, be on the lookout for that. Thank you, Seamus, for
Thank
everything
you.
so, so much. And thank you all so much for attending. We hope you have a fantastic weekend and we'll see you soon for sure.
All right. Thank you, Maria. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.